As modern people, we define ourselves by the fact that we think. We're distinguished by the fact that we turn our thoughts into objects, to tools and weapons that give us success, but we also symbolise our thoughts. What do we symbolise? Worlds beyond nature, beings beyond nature. As we turn here, we see Europe in the last ice age. And it shows the human mind developing and asking that question, what does it mean to be here? I'm part of all this nature, but I'm different. I wear clothes and I keep the fire going and I've got tools and weapons. 40,000 years old, it's an extraordinary figure.
It's obviously been handled by a lot of human hands. The top of it, even though it has still maintained a beautiful patina, it's been well worn,
yes.
And that must be to do with human contact. That can't
yes.
just be because of its preservation
yes.
in the ground. The more intimate they're with the object, I assume that means they're going to be closer to the spirit of the object.
Yes. The fascinating thing is in the mouth area there are signs of organic material that suggest it might also have been fed. So they've talked to it. It's been part of rituals.
It's been nurtured.
And it's been nurtured.
Nurtured by humanity. And what's interesting, though, is when you look at it, it does have a great sense of sort of timelessness, of infinity.
Well, of course, the start of all creation stories is light.
This is a beautiful piece. The colors, the way it's been done almost looks like something that's very modern.
A religion of ancient Persia and the first faith that we know of to have one God, the concept of just one deity. God, Ahura Mazda, is represented by the eternal flame of the fire.
So the iconography of fire.
Well, it's something which has always been there. Of course, in the period of the Lion Man, keeping the fire going was a vital activity because you needed the warmth, you needed to cook, you needed protection from wild animals. So the fire becomes the focal point of human activities very, very early on. Here we look at the Jewish rituals of the Sabbath.
This is obviously 2017, and these are objects that are used today during the traditional service of lighting candles.
This is about how we worship, how we believe, and that we believe. It's not so much focused on what we believe, because when you look at how we believe, we find that we share so much more than what divides us. The universal interest in fire, in water, in candles, and all of these things unites us. It shows that we have a shared base, and for me there's some hope in that. This is a limestone sculpture from Giza, which is now modern Iraq.
It has a sense of patience in terms of her prayer and a great sense of humility. And if you look at, I think, all of the broader group of religions that you've presented here, patience and humility are two key elements. That's why I think this is one of my favorite pieces here.
So here we look at the many ways in which we focus our prayers through beads. They begin in Buddhism, spread out across Asia, as far as Japan, spread out into Europe, into Christianity, come back into Islam. Of course, humans have this awareness and anxiety over death and find so many ways in which to make death better. In West Africa, the funeral service is very, very elaborate, and the coming together is very, very useful for the community.
I adore St. Joseph, and St. Joseph is about having a good death. This illustrates the fact that many cultures see death as a continuation of life, but just in a different form.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think that across the world and through many faiths, this kind of ritual we all share.
I've got to stop you here just because I find this to be one of the most dramatic pieces, because it deals with this whole notion of conflict in religion, the actual object itself forcing a priest to put their foot on the crucifix, almost making worse the suffering of Christ.
It's extraordinary to make an art object which is for abuse. And you can see here the Inquisition, this process of people being asked to stamp on this thing, knowing that if you were a Christian, this is something you just could not do. But also knowing that if they didn't stamp on this image, then their families and they would suffer.
And you have this very extraordinary, almost sensationalized notion that the Russian government is trying to hijack the Christian faith here.
This is a regime that has refused religion, and yet they're realizing in 1985 this is painted, that they're losing it, that people have to have rituals, they have to have a belief. So they try and say, well, your belief needs to be in the socialist state.
No,
and it shows you
but it
getting...
wasn't deep enough. These are all simple material things, which is not enough. You have to sort of search for the deeper meaning. It's interesting, and this wonderful...
And then this, of course, is scientific atheism. This is a cosmonaut walking in space saying, I see no God, and the church falling underneath.
And I love it how he's almost like an angel. You have him presented flying above a very traditional Russian icon. I think one of my other favorite objects, this Lampedusa cross, is 2014, very beautiful, but the tragedy underlying it is very powerful.
Yes, this was the terrible sinking of a ship with a huge number of lives lost. Francesco Tuccio, he met Eritrean and Somali Christians in his church who were survivors, but he didn't know what to do with them. He was not a wealthy man, he had no resources, he didn't know what he could give. So he gave what he could, which was from the wood of the ships.
As we leave the Lampedusa cross, I can't help but see over my left shoulder our starting point with the Lion Man, and how the more and more I walk through and experience the energy of this exhibition, the more I realize I'm never going to forget the Lion Man.
We haven't changed very much in 40,000 years. What we need and to whom we speak are the same thing.
And we need to respect each other's dignity.
Yes.
And the human factor.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.